In the volatile, glittering and brutal world of 16th century France, racked by the wars of religion, one figure stands as a perfect emblem of the era's dark fascinations. He was a man of science and superstition, a political advisor who operated in the shadows, and the most trusted and most feared confidant of the formidable Queen Mother, Catherine de Medici. His name was Cosimo Ruggieri, or Com Ruggieri, as he was known in France, and his life story is a fascinating blend of political intrigue, occult legend, and historical fact. Cosimo Ruggieri was born in Florence, Italy, in the early 16th century. The exact date is unknown, but he was a product of the High Renaissance, an environment where intellect, art, and a deep interest in the occult, disguised as natural philosophy, flourished side by side. His father, Ruggiero il Vecchio the Elder, was a physician and astrologer who had served the Medici family, the great banking and political dynasty of Florence. This family connection was Cosimo's key to power. When Catherine de Medici, a daughter of that house, travelled to France in 1533 to marry the future King Henry II, she brought with her a large retinue of Italian attendants, including poets, artists, perfumers, and crucially, astrologers. Cosimo Ruggieri followed in his father's footsteps and, by the 1570s, had established himself as the preeminent figure in Catherine's Italian court, the French nobility. Already deeply suspicious of these foreign influences, viewed Ruggieri with a mixture of awe and profound distrust. To understand Ruggieri, one must understand his patron. Catherine de Medici was a pragmatic, ruthless politician who ruled as Queen Regent and then as Queen Mother through the short, disastrous reigns of her three sons, Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III. Living in a time of constant civil war and assassination attempts, Catherine was obsessed with the future and the survival of her Valois dynasty. She was a devout Catholic, but also deeply superstitious, employing numerous seers, astrologers, and magicians. Cosimo Ruggieri was her chief advisor in this realm. His official role was often disguised. At one point he was appointed as a tutor to Catherine's sons. His real job, however, was to read the stars, make predictions, and provide occult counsel. Catherine had an observatory built for him in her new Parisian palace, the Hôtel de la Reine, later the Hôtel de Soissons. Today, the 100-foot-tall Medici Column is all that remains of the palace, a stark monument to the power this astrologer wielded. Legend holds that it was in this tower that Ruggieri performed his most famous feats for the Queen. The most persistent story tells of a magic mirror in which he showed Catherine the future of France. In the glass, she supposedly saw the face of each of her sons, their reigns reflected in the number of times they turned a spectral crown. Finally, the mirror showed a new face, Henry of Navarre, who turned the crown 22 times, foretelling the end of her dynasty and the rise of the Bourbon kings. While legends of magic mirrors defined his reputation, Ruggieri's most significant historical impact came from his very real involvement in political conspiracy. In 1574, King Charles IX, infamous for ordering the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, was dying of tuberculosis. His brother Henry, the future Henry III, was away in Poland, and the youngest brother François, Duke of Alençon, was ambitious and impatient. A plot was hatched by two young, dashing nobles, Joseph Boniface de la Môle and Annibal de Coconnas. They were allies of Alençon and sought to use the king's illness to put their patron on the throne. As part of their plot, they consulted Cosimo Ruggieri. They didn't just ask for an astrological chart. They allegedly asked Ruggieri to hasten the king's death through magic. Ruggieri was accused of envoûtement, a form of sympathetic magic. According to the charges, he created a wax effigy of King Charles IX and pierced it with needles, believing that as the wax figure melted, the king's life would drain away. The plot was discovered. La Môle and Coconnas were captured, brutally tortured, and publicly beheaded. Ruggieri's fate should have been sealed. As a commoner and a foreigner accused of high treason and regicide by magic, he was also arrested and tortured. Under the agony of the boot, a device that crushed the legs, he confessed to everything. He was found guilty and sentenced to the galleys, a life of brutal servitude rowing warships, which was considered a death sentence. But then, the unbelievable happened. Catherine de Medici intervened. Despite Ruggieri having confessed to magically murdering her own son, the Queen Mother had his sentence commuted. After a brief period, he was not only freed but was brought back to court and restored to his former position of influence. This single act did more to cement Ruggieri's sinister reputation than any legend. To the French court and the common people, this was all the proof they needed. Why would the Queen save a man who tried to kill the king? The only possible answers were terrifying. She was complicit in the plot. She believed so strongly in his magic that she still needed him. He knew too many of her secrets, and she couldn't risk him talking. Ruggieri became the linchpin of the black legend, la légende noire, of Catherine de Medici, the propaganda that painted her as a depraved, poisoning, occult-obsessed Italian tyrant. He was seen as her personal poisoner, her sorcerer, and the devil at her elbow. Cosimo Ruggieri remained a powerful figure at court for the rest of Catherine's life, serving her and her last son, Henry III. His most famous prophecy was not for France, but for Catherine herself. According to the 19th century writer Alexandre Dumas, Ruggieri warned Catherine that she would die near Saint-Germain. Terrified, the Queen Mother obsessively avoided any place with that name. She refused to visit the Château de Saint-Germain-en-Laye and abandoned construction on the Tuileries Palace because it was near the church of Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois. On January 5th, 1589, Catherine lay dying at the Château de Blois, far from any Saint-Germain. As she weakened, she asked for a priest to hear her final confession. A young, unknown cleric was brought to her bedside. After giving her absolution, she asked him his name. He replied, Julien de Saint-Germain. Upon hearing the name, Catherine reportedly gasped. "I am lost." She died moments later. Cosimo Ruggieri himself outlived his great patron and the entire Valois dynasty she fought to protect. He died a very wealthy man in Paris in 1615. Was Cosimo Ruggieri a charlatan, a brilliant political operator, a genuine believer in the occult, or simply a proto-scientist whose astronomy was mistaken for magic? He was, most likely, all of these at once. He remains one of history's most compelling and mysterious figures, a man who navigated the treacherous currents of a fanatical age, armed with nothing but his wits, his knowledge of the stars, and the unwavering protection of a queen.